Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels episode review. This one's going to be for Season 2, Episode 5, Wings of the Master. And overall, I thought this was a good episode. I didn't think it was amazing, and obviously I didn't have too many negatives with it. It's just that I felt like it could have been better. This was our kind of first Hera-focused episode of Season 2, and pretty much, the first Hera completely focused episode we've got full stop in Star Wars Rebels. And so it was a pretty important thing because, you know, Hera I don't think has been the character that's been the most focused on, despite being, the captain of the Ghost, technically the leader of the entire crew. The reason why the Ghost crew is now involved in the rebellion is because of her connections. She's technically the character that links everyone together in the rebellion and is kind of commanding them a lot of the time. But we don't know that much about her. And I had huge issue with this in Season 1 because there was this one episode, I think it might have been actually episode 5 of Season 1, where it was the only Sabine and Hera focused episode that we got the whole season. And they just did nothing with it. There was these two characters who needed time, and they put them both together, and they did nothing with it. It was just this weird thing where they played on the fact that Sabine was still struggling to trust everyone being part of this crew because of her past, and she didn't really go into that much, and then Hera was just trying to convince her that was the case. Nice team-up episode, but they didn't do anything really with it. And so I went into this episode like, okay, it's only really Hera-focused. What are they going to do here? And I did like what they did. It definitely was a lot better than that episode. But I still think they only did the kind of bare minimum in terms of developing her character, giving us new information on her as a character. And primarily where that came from was just where she learned how to fly, her delving a little bit into her backstory, with regards to her memories of the time during the Clone Wars, during the attack on Ryloth, and what she remembers of that, and how her memories of this kind of inspired her to become a pilot because she saw the Republic fighters coming in to help save her planet, and that inspired her to fly. And her desire to fly also comes from a perspective of wanting to help people, not completely from this militaristic point of view, but given the way the galaxy is at this point in time, she's part of the rebellion, she realizes that she has to use her skills here to make that happen. And I definitely liked how this really explained a lot of the way she sees flying, the way she can be so good and cool under fire during these crazy dogfights that we see, space battles. And it's because when all this stuff is happening, she feels the most free that she can be because she's flying. I thought that was actually a really kind of cool thing for them to actually delve into in this episode. My only issue is that she was very, very vague, and I think it was written this way on purpose, and I don't know why. When she talked about her past, she mentioned leaving her family. No mention of her father specifically, Cham Syndulla, who we know from the Clone Wars, who was a kind of rebellion leader. That reading some of the books and stuff like that, we know he is meant to be a pretty big deal. What is it? Lords of the Sith. It's that Palpatine and Vader focused novel where they kind of get trapped on a planet together. You see Cham Syndulla's group, and you could see that he's forming a rebellion against the Empire there, and he survives that book as far as I'm aware. But he doesn't appear to be part of the rebellion at this point in time. Hera doesn't mention him, so it seems like they don't have a good relationship, potentially, given the way she talks about leaving her family to do this on her own. And if she was there with her father, you'd think she'd mention it, but she doesn't. So I don't know if they're saving that for later down the line for it to be Hera's kind of big moment, where we get the reveal that the revolution leader or something like that, Cham Syndulla, is her father, and they encounter him at some point and they try and do some sort of reunion thing. But we just don't know at this point in time. I'm just even speculating that there is an issue there between them. It could just be bad writing in this episode that they say all the lines where just it's always my family, and then she refers to her mother specifically, but obviously not by name. Just my mother did this and this. So it was a, it added to her character for sure. We know a lot more about her and kind of who she is, why she's a pilot, and that's good. It's just I felt they could have gone a little bit more in depth than they did in this episode. When I feel she is definitely one of the two characters most in need of character development in the show right now. The other being Sabine, who I think needs its, like, she absolutely is number one on my list. Sabine needs character development badly. She needs her backstory delved into a lot, and just to know a little bit more about her than the few things we do. More so than what Hera got in this episode. Zeb, I think, also needs some development, but I don't think he's as bad as the other two. So definitely, these episodes like this and what they did with last episode and what the next episode is going to be with Sabine, I like that the show's going down this road and that it realizes that, okay, we've got a group of characters together here. We can't give so much time to them all when they're all in a group, so we're going to have to split them up into various groups at certain points, develop them, and that's fine. I like what they're doing. The plot, it hasn't really gone anywhere in the last couple of episodes, but the character development is good enough for me right now that, okay, I can accept a kind of cooling down of the story for the next couple of episodes to give the characters some time to develop. Makes complete sense. As I said, Sabine needs it, Hera needs it, Zeb does, and whoever else they decide to develop. One other point I will make about the backstory before I move on is just that I'm getting increasingly worried that they're not actually going to show any flashback. Everything that we've got so far has been a character saying something, and even then, when they refer to the past, it's very vague. It's not very specific. Like Rex bringing up the Jedi he served under, he never says Anakin, and I get with Anakin that they say that, but like Hondo, like in the last episode, mentioning I once knew a Jedi, and not referring to him by name, not referring to Obi-Wan, when it could have been this cool connection that like Hondo knows Obi-Wan, and Ezra found, Kanan's hologram, which is of Obi-Wan. There could have been a cool connection there, but they didn't go down that road. With this, I would have liked to have perhaps seen a little flashback to the Clone Wars, to see a Hera as a young girl, seeing the siege of Ryloth from her point of view, and seeing the pilots fly overhead and see where the inspiration comes from. Maybe play into the fact that the plot of this episode is very similar to what happened on Ryloth, in that it's people who are starving because of a kind of blockade, a imposing force, the Separatists in the Clone Wars, the Empire right now. She is now taking on the role of the Republic that they serve to Ryloth to help this planet here. They could have played on that a little bit more, and that the Republic saved her a lot of help because of the pilots, and now she can do the same for this planet with the help of the B-Wing and her piloting skills. They didn't quite go make the connections that I thought they would, but the episode was still good overall. Other side of the episode was Quarry and the B-Wing, and I liked how they gave a lot of focus to the B-Wing, and that, like, I think if it was like a fan writing this episode, it would have been the X-Wing. It would have been the prototype of the X-Wing, and they would have used the most iconic ship from Star Wars and made a big deal about it. But I actually like that they went for one of the kind of not as well known ships from like the original trilogy in the B-Wing, and they kind of delved into the prototype of it and it getting a chance to shine, and that I never knew the B-Wing could attack using all four of its cannons to kind of form a giant laser. Maybe that's just a prototype thing that doesn't make it to the mass manufacturing of it, but it was cool to see that. Cool to see, where the connection with this kind of shipyard, shipbuilder kind of organization here with Quarry comes from. And, they didn't go too much in depth with it. You can sort of see that it was just him on his own, but there is a bigger connection that's happening here. And And, it's probably animation budget reasons for why they didn't have it just be them arrive at this giant factory or anything like that. That it was just this one planet away from the Empire with this atmosphere that really tests starfighters and piloting skills as the way to test a new prototype spaceship. It was kind of cool design of the planet, a cool just little testing ground. But ultimately, the whole thing with Quarry was that he didn't seem to like Hera at first because she just assumed he was going to hand over the ship to her, assumed that she was going to get to fly it and test it. And it took her basically revealing her kind of origins of where her piloting skills comes from for him to realize that no, she's like a true pilot. She cares about the freedom and stuff like that, and is only involved in the war side of things to end the Empire. And her philosophy on flying basically promoted him to kind of let her use the ship, and I like that. He wasn't the most in-depth character, of course. I think he's a character we'll only see for maybe one or two more episodes, and maybe when the B-Wings get mass-produced and we see a really big space battle involving them, he'll mention some of the modifications he made because of Hera's testing feedback. But it was a cool sequence seeing her test fly the plane, and just all the stuff that she did, piloting around this hard to pilot around planet, testing the weapons and getting the reveal of the big super cannon, and then obviously arriving at the last moment to save the second transport ship during the second run. It gave the B-Wing and Hera a cool moment, and she was rewarded for it at the end of the episode with the promotion to Phoenix Squadron leader, which I think is a cool thing that they had happen to her character, though I didn't quite understand the promotion because we didn't know what rank she was in the rebellion before this episode. She was captain of the Ghost, and she seemed reasonably high up in this little bit of the rebellion that we're seeing right now. So I wasn't exactly sure what the promotion was, because she was commanding the initial transport attack that we saw at the start of the episode. And she was also commanding the second one, basically, once she arrived. So, does this promotion actually give her anything else that she didn't have before? I assume we'll get into that as the series progresses, but it was just a little bit kind of confusing as to where the promotion really was here. Maybe going forward it means that Hera won't be completely tied to the Ghost crew, in that if there are big space battles, they'll have a huge focus on her skills in terms of helping the space battle stuff, while the rest of them maybe do the ground engagements, and they'll make her the main pilot character, that when it comes to these fighter battles, this is where it comes down to it. And maybe they'll do a big moment where Darth Vader, who's obviously Anakin, who we know is an amazing pilot, he might praise her piloting skills at some point if there is a big battle that involves everyone. So they might do that, but overall I'm not massively sure where they were going with the promotion. It fit in that Hera had this kind of journey about the first failure of the transport, and then going through this journey with the B-Wing to saving the day in the end and getting the promotion. Made complete sense, but wasn't massively sure about what the reward was at the end, how big of a promotion really was this. They maybe could have said okay, you're being promoted from this to this, rather than was she even part of Phoenix Squadron in the first place, or are you just making her part of it now and she's the leader? It was a bit what are you doing? But overall I did enjoy the episode. It was very focused on Hera, but as I said before, I felt they very much held back a lot of information, so I'm eager to see if they have any more Hera-focused episodes as the series progresses. But this was a kind of nice thing to just have, get it out of the way that, okay, I don't feel she's in like desperate need of development right now. I'm fine. Like, okay, Sabine is the one who really needs it now, and what do you know? The next episode is going to be Sabine focused. So they seem to understand like which characters need the attention, and they're resolving that. I just hope that as the series progresses, they realize that they need to maybe show a little bit of the flashback. Don't just have the characters talk about their past in the present day, and actually like show it, delve into that, get the emotion that some other shows have doing proper flashback. But yeah, this was a solid episode. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode, on my review. Other than that, thanks for watching, and bye.